So the toolbox that I went for is really just a poly chest. It's DeeZee brand. This is their poly chest. It's got molded in cup holders. It does have a foam seal in here to help waterproof it, but it doesn't have like a buckle latch or anything. But it does have these flanges that you can put a padlock on to lock it up. But I need to get it mounted into the bed, so my initial plan is going to be to find some strategic locations and just drill a hole through it and put bolts upwards into the bottom of the poly chest so that way it doesn't slide around. But the reason that I went with this is, one, of course, I've got the bed cover, and so I didn't want a toolbox that's going to be sitting on the bed rails, and I wanted something that wasn't going to take up so much of the bed space. So my goal is to mount it in this approximate location, and it's also not extremely tall, and I like that way if I need to, get some 2x4s or longer pieces of like plywood or something, I can still slide them in the truck bed to the sides of the toolbox, or put plywood or sheetrock maybe on top of the toolbox. It is a pretty strong plastic, so I think that will work out pretty well. So to locate from the top side, I'm just going to center up the toolbox, and I'm referencing, like I said, based off of the hardware and that drain hole. I want to drill from the top side in the valleys because I have large fender washers that I want to put on the underside to help distribute the weight if the toolbox starts shifting around. So I'm just going to index here, and then 1, 2, 3 valleys in here. And I'm going to try and line that up with the feature of the toolbox where the valleys are here, so somewhere along this back row. Now, of course, I can shift the toolbox forward or back. Got to have a little bit of space at the back to be able to open the lid, so if I get the holes where I want them in the truck, I can put the toolbox wherever. So when you slide underneath the bed area of the Tacoma, I'm near the rear bumper. I'm just sliding forward. There's the spare tire. There's the rear axle. And here's kind of the bulkhead area. You can see the gap between the cab and the bed. But you got a muffler here. And the fuel tank and all of the evaporative emissions equipment is going to be difficult as far as access from the bottom side. I think I'll have enough room definitely to be able to drill from the top down and get some hardware over here. Now, you do have space above the fuel tank, but it's going to be difficult for wrench access, so I'll have to delicately drill a hole from the top down and try and figure out a way to just snake a wrench up here. You do have enough hand space. You can get a hand and a wrench back there. It's just going to be a blind assembly, and I think I'm going to need a partner to hold the hardware from the top. But definitely cramped quarters. You definitely have more space by the tailgate area, especially if you drop the rear tire, but your axle, there's plenty of space up here where you could mount. So if you wanted to do a bed like A-track type system, or the aircraft track, you could put tracks in here. There are drain holes in the top, so those are kind of the features that I am indexing myself off of, if you will. That's kind of the location that I'm referencing everything from the top and from the bottom of the truck bed, and you can see the hardware going into the frame. So that's kind of what I'm doing, and you can see, of course, the dimples and indentions in there. So I can try and count, 3 rows of the indentions in from the outer edge where the drain holes are, and try and get my holes drilled that way. So I went ahead and I measured and marked a little cross point there. Going with a small drill bit at first, but you don't need to see me drilling holes, but hopefully if measurements work out, that's the right spot. So this is the bolt sandwich that I'm going to be using to hold the toolbox in place. This is a 5/16 inch bolt. You can get really any kind you want. This is zinc coated. Stainless would be better just because it is going to be through your truck bed, so you don't want it to rust. So this is just a 1 inch long bolt. It's got a hex head with a wide flange on it. I have a large fender washer that's going to go on the bottom side of the plastic truck bed. And then I have a small washer because I drilled the hole through the valley on the ridges inside the deck. And I am going to use this nylock nut. I don't have it threaded on here yet, but I'm going to use that to hold basically this bolt in place in the truck bed as a stud. And then I'm going to just drill an appropriate hole in the toolbox, and then I will use this wing nut to kind of manually fasten it down from inside the toolbox. So my logic is if I need to use the full truck bed for a load of mulch or something else, then I can just open the toolbox, clean it out, and remove the wing nut by hand, and the studs will stay in place, and I don't have to get up underneath the truck every time I want to remove this. And here's what that stud looks like from the top side. Hopefully that's enough of the bolt sticking out to be able to go through the toolbox and put the wing nut on the top side with the washer. And here it is, bolted in. Washer, wing nut. I put this in the valley of the toolbox here, so you know the floor of the toolbox will be here, and so if I have, you know, storage bins or totes or whatever, it's not going to interfere with the studs sticking up. One thing, obviously, since I had to mount it towards the back, is it has a tendency to rock a little bit, so I am going to have to put another one kind of in the front center. I think that might be the best way to get access. It took some precision measuring, but above the rear axle and right next to that brace in the plastic and this evaporative emissions box, that's where I was able to get that third stud to help prevent it from rocking. So you can see I got the one in the front corner, and I was able to squeeze one in right here on the front edge, and that just prevents it from rocking back and forth. Nice thing is even with the 1.25" bolt and the wing nut and an extra fender washer inside the toolbox, it's still not too tall. So like I have this plastic tote and it slides pretty easily here. So I got 3 mounting bolts. So if I need to get, you know, a big load of mulch or stone or whatever other landscaping supplies, I just need to by hand remove these, and then I can just grab the handles on either side here and I can lift the whole thing up. And you can see the 3 studs that I have, and because they are bolted in, I don't have to, you know, get up underneath the truck every time I need to reinstall or remove the toolbox. The studs stay put nice and tight.